For years, mysterious stories, legends, and theories about airplanes have been told all around the world. Some planes are said to have traveled through time, taking off on one date and landing years later. Some supposedly pass through hidden gateways that are believed to exist between the Earth and outer space, while others simply vanish without a trace, without a single piece of wreckage ever being found. But are these planes really encountering such mysterious and mind-bending phenomena? Or are they all just myths born from imagination? Today, we'll dive deep into the details of some of the most mysterious airplane incidents that are claimed to be real, and explore whether they were genuine anomalies or cleverly crafted legends meant to capture human curiosity. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share in the comments what kind of mysterious topics you'd like me to cover next. Your ideas could inspire our next episode. Now, if you're ready, let's begin our mysterious journey. When the date showed July 2, 1955, a plane took off from New York to Miami under the name Pan Am Flight 914. At first, it was a completely normal flight that would take only a few hours, but shortly after takeoff, the plane disappeared from radar, and all communication with the control tower was lost. At first, officials thought it might have been caused by an electrical issue or bad weather, but as time passed, they realized the situation was far more serious. Search operations began, scanning the entire flight route and surrounding regions where the plane might have crashed. However, no trace of the aircraft or its passengers was ever found. Eventually, the flight was declared missing, and the case was shelved away, collecting dust in aviation history. But then, something strange happened 37 years later. On September 9, 1992, at Caracas Airport in Venezuela, radar operators suddenly detected an unidentified aircraft appearing out of nowhere. The plane was identified as a Boeing 727. Air traffic controllers immediately contacted the pilot, asking for flight details, identification, and the names of the crew. The pilot's response shocked not only the control tower, but later, countless people around the world. He calmly replied, "Pan American Flight 914, from New York to Miami." The controller froze. He checked the flight logs again and again, and what he found made no sense. That flight number had been listed as missing since 1955, with no survivors and no wreckage ever found. Moments later, the mysterious aircraft descended and landed smoothly. The pilots, passengers, and ground staff were all in disbelief. When the pilot saw the current date on the control tower screens, he panicked. Confused and terrified, he restarted the engines and took off again into the sky, disappearing once more. After that, neither the plane nor its passengers were ever seen again. All that remained were a few scattered papers and flight documents found on the runway. For years, this story circulated in paranormal books and magazines under titles like "Are Time Portals Real?" and "The Plane That Traveled Through Time." But was it true? Did this flight really exist? And did such an incredible event actually happen? Here's the truth. Despite how dramatic and fascinating the story sounds, there is no official record, document, or verifiable evidence of this incident. Neither Pan Am's archives, the FAA, nor Caracas Airport's records show any sign of Flight 914 ever landing there in 1992. Researchers believe this story likely originated as a fabricated news piece from the 1970s that spread through word of mouth until it became an urban legend. Still, people love mysteries, and humanity has always been fascinated by the unexplained. That's why, even today, the story of Pan Am Flight 914 continues to be told and retold, keeping its eerie charm alive across generations. Another famous story with a similar background is the one about Santiago Flight 513. According to reports, on September 4, 1954, a passenger plane took off from Aachen, Germany, heading for Chile. However, shortly after takeoff, the aircraft suddenly disappeared from radar. No signal, no trace, no evidence was ever found. Rescue teams searched tirelessly, examining every possible area where the plane might have gone down, but they found nothing. Eventually, realizing there would be no results, the authorities labeled the aircraft as missing, and the case was shelved, just like so many others before it. Exactly 35 years later, on October 12, 1989, something extraordinary happened. The very same aircraft reportedly appeared on radar at Porto Alegre Airport in Brazil. The plane gave off a signal but ignored all attempts at communication, descending in total silence and landing smoothly on the runway. Air traffic controllers watched in disbelief, both on the radar and with their own eyes. Meanwhile, airport police and security personnel rushed toward the landing area, suspecting it might be a terrorist incident. Once the plane had come to a full stop, ground crews approached it carefully, but as they got closer, they noticed something strange. There was no movement inside. No one was responding. When the door was finally opened, the team felt as if they had stepped into a ghost ship that had drifted aimlessly through the skies for decades. Inside, everyone was still sitting in their seats, completely skeletal, frozen in time. While one group inspected the passenger cabin, Another went into the cockpit to check on the flight crew. The pilot was sitting in his seat, hands still on the controls, looking no different from the rest of the passengers, lifeless, motionless, preserved as he was. According to theorists and people who create legends about such mysterious cases, the incident was covered up by governments, and the aircraft was secretly taken away for research and investigation. But could this story really be true? Of course not. The reason I've told you this story with such conviction, as if it were real, is because even when we know something isn't true, humans can't help but feel a sense of excitement and curiosity toward mysterious, unexplained events. Even though I know this story is completely fictional, while researching and telling it, I couldn't help but feel genuinely excited and intrigued. And that's exactly how certain groups manage to capture people's attention, curiosity, and focus, sometimes even deceiving them for their own gain. My advice to you is this: whenever you hear or watch stories like these that lack scientific basis, reality, or credibility, always make sure to trace the story back to its original source through reliable channels. You'll soon discover that most of these mysterious events never actually happened. Anyway, this story also does not come from any official flight record or verified report. Its origin lies in a tabloid magazine called Weekly World News, which was active in the 1980s. However, scientists later discussed the idea within the framework of relativistic time dilation. According to Einstein's general theory of relativity, time flows differently at extremely high speeds, which led people to wonder, what if a plane somehow crossed into another flow of time? So even though this story is entirely fictional, after being mentioned by scientists in discussions of relativity, it transformed into a tale that provokes scientific thought while still keeping its mysterious allure. The most famous stories about planes disappearing have taken place in the Bermuda Triangle, which we already covered in a previous video. I'm sure most of you already know about it. However, even though many people have tried to link the events that happened there to mysterious or supernatural causes, NASA and other scientific agencies have provided solid scientific explanations for why planes and ships go off course or vanish in that region. Of course, since we can't control what people choose to believe, there are still those who continue to spread all kinds of ridiculous stories about the area. And there's nothing we can really do about that. Anyway, leaving aside these so-called supernatural mysteries, there's one very famous plane that really did take off, really did disappear, and of which almost nothing has ever been found except for a few fragments. You've probably seen it mentioned in documentaries or news videos before: the mysterious Malaysian plane. The date was March 8, 2014. A Boeing 777 aircraft, operating as a scheduled flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, began its journey carrying 227 passengers and 12 crew members. Its departure time was 0041 a.m., and the expected landing time was 6:30 a.m. The route, procedures, and flight plan were all carefully prepared. The aircraft took off smoothly and began following its assigned route. For both the pilots and cabin crew, it was a routine, uneventful flight, or so it seemed. But within the first hour after takeoff, things began to change in ways no one could have expected. The first technical communication between the aircraft and air traffic control occurred at 1:07 a.m., when the ACAR system transmitted data showing that the plane was flying normally. 12 minutes later, at 1:19 a.m., the pilot made his final radio transmission. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Moments after that, the plane's transponder stopped functioning. At 1:21 a.m., the aircraft completely disappeared from civilian radar and lost contact with secondary radar systems. However, military radar later confirmed that the plane was still moving. Analysis of the radar data showed that it had deviated from its planned route, turning westward over the Malay Peninsula and then heading northwest toward the Andaman Sea. From there, officials identified two possible corridors, one northward toward Central Asia and another southwestward into the southern Indian Ocean. The northern corridor was soon ruled out as it passed through heavily monitored military airspace. It would have been impossible for the plane to go undetected. Satellite data revealed that the aircraft continued to send hourly ping or handshake messages via its Satellite Data Unit (SDU). The final signal, received at 8:19 a.m., corresponded to a time when the plane likely ran out of fuel. This suggested that, even though it was no longer under official control, the aircraft's automated systems had kept it flying for several more hours. The official search and investigation process began immediately. Malaysia, Australia, and China led a joint international operation, focusing primarily on the southern Indian Ocean as of March 18, 2014. The operation went on to become one of the largest and most expensive aircraft searches in history. Search teams used surface sweeps, sonar scanning, seabed mapping, and satellite image analysis. But before long, a grim truth became apparent. The main fuselage, black boxes, and large parts of the plane were still missing. The public followed the event with great curiosity, astonished that not a single solid answer had been found. Official reports described the situation as almost unbelievable. In July 2015, something finally surfaced, literally. Investigators and the public woke up to astonishing news. A flaperon had washed ashore on Reunion Island. Chemical and serial number analyses confirmed that this part indeed belonged to Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. Later, smaller debris fragments were also found along the eastern coast of Africa, including Mozambique, Tanzania, and several Indian Ocean islands. These findings strengthened the theory that the plane had crashed somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean. However, none of these fragments were sufficient to determine the exact flight path or crash site. Academic studies using ocean current and drift modeling showed that the region's wind and sea dynamics involved huge uncertainties. For instance, one study suggested that the most likely impact area might have been near latitude 25 degrees south, based on debris drift simulations. While these models helped narrow down the search zones, they still couldn't pinpoint the precise location. In short, no one knows where, why, or when this plane went down. Researchers have focused on four main theories. 1A, deliberate deviation and suicide mission by the pilot or crew. 2, a technical malfunction, such as fire or oxygen failure. 3, a military incident or hijacking. 4, or simply, an incorrect modeling of the crash site, which caused the wreckage to remain unfound. Each theory is supported by various researchers and different sets of evidence. I'll discuss all of them in detail in a dedicated video about this mysterious flight. This event might truly be one of the strangest and most mysterious aviation incidents ever recorded. Fortunately, unlike the earlier exaggerated and over-dramatized stories we discussed, there are far fewer people spreading nonsense about this one. Hopefully, we'll one day uncover the truth about what really happened to this plane. So, that's it, my friends. Our world and humanity have always been home to both real and imaginary stories. And with each passing day, their number keeps growing. Listening to fictional stories as if they were real and visualizing them in my mind always excites and entertains me. But I never let myself forget that they're not real. When it comes to real events, though, I like to dig deeper, think harder, and explore every detail. And what I love most is turning all of that research into videos to share with you. If you, like me, enjoy exploring mysterious and thrilling events from a scientific and realistic perspective without distorting the facts, make sure to subscribe to my channel, like my videos, and share your ideas in the comments for future topics. That's all from me for now. Until we meet again in the next video, take care and stay safe.